Hi everyone, welcome to the 2020 Leaders in Trade Compliance series. Today we have Jeff Peterson with me, and Jeff Peterson is the Global Trade and Logistics Director at Tenneco. Jeff, I'm going to hand it over to you and to kind of let you talk about today's topics, which is pretty much how trade compliance has changed over the past bunch of years, where it's going and where it actually is. And while we talk about that, I'm also going to kind of question you a couple of things. I might bring up a couple of questions which pop up from either people who are watching or a couple of questions which come into my mind as well. So as we talk about that, you can kind of talk about how the employees develop through their professional careers as well.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you, Nadine. I really appreciate you inviting me to speak at your webinars. You've come such a long way. I'm so proud of everything that you've done. I think this is a great forum to allow different individuals within the industry to learn and grow and even be able to network along the time. So congratulations, come a long way from your original webinars and all that, doing live events. So I'm really proud of you. I think this is an excellent forum. I guess you want me to introduce myself? Jeff Peterson.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like Nadine stated, I'm the Director of Global Trade and Logistics Continuous Improvement at Tenneco Automotive, which means that I have really oversight over several aspects of supply chain, logistics, trade compliance, and I also have product compliance that report to me. So it's a pretty robust and diverse role, and I get to do several different things and wear several different hats. So it's really great. The topic that Nadeem and I discussed about what we wanted to focus on is related to the human capital piece of trade compliance. And that's really getting the best team and the best fit for your organization. And what I want to do is when I walk you through each one of these, when we walk through this in more detail, what I want to do is take the process and focus on it on both the individual's perspective as well as the individual's perspective as well as the company's perspective. So the one thing I think a lot of your audience are people that are up and coming. They want to learn, they want to grow in their careers. But one of the ways that you do that is not necessarily looking at yourself inward, is looking at organization and why organizations hire people and how you can best make yourself marketable to be able to fit the position. So we'll cover several topics, and you can lead me along the directions we want to go. We'll also talk about how the industry has evolved over the last 20 years, 20 plus years. There's been some pretty monstrous changes on the way that we go about trade compliance. So we can talk about that further, talk about the different pathways that work, and then we'll also look at how you can build diverse skill sets within yourself to try to be the most marketable for positions. But lots changed, and we expect more to change, and we expect the human element or the human capital element of trade compliance to change and evolve with it. So exciting times. These last 5 years have been really great and really challenging and all that. And I don't expect that to change anytime soon. I think we're on a pathway, and the way that trade compliance is focused within the organization is here to stay. And we need to continue to move and evolve with the time. So I'm very excited.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. So let's kind of begin talking about trade compliance and the actual changes you have seen since you've joined trade compliance. I know you've been in trade compliance for a while, for a number of years, more than 15 years from what I know. So first, let's kind of talk about the changes that you saw as you were in this field from when you began into the last 5 years, pretty much, when we had President Trump come on, and then from here on, where do you see these changes going in the future?
Okay. Yeah, so I really started getting into the trade compliance aspect of logistics and supply chain around 2003, and that was a very pivotal time as well. Coming off of 9/11, there's definitely some radical changes that happened with customs and homeland security. So change isn't anything new, and it's not exclusive to the last 20 years. Though really in the last 5 years, we've seen some very significant changes. So really, when I entered the industry, there was just the immediate focus on taking a look at security as a part of compliance, and kind of pairing the compliance aspects and the security aspects together. So change is nothing new, though the last 20 years I've really experienced it and seen quite a bit of change. So I mean, we'll just take on some for examples. When I started, some of the main skill sets that we looked for in employees was really, it was highly administrative. When you look at not only on the customs broker world, but within the manufacturer, importer, exporter world, administrative skills, typing was very important. Being able to file, we used a lot of manila folders. We had to organize, alphabetize, lots of stickers and different things like that. It just seems radically out of this world at the moment. But that's the nature of what we were in. One thing we used a lot back when I first started was fax machines. Much of what we had came from fax machines. We used scanners to make attachments, different things like that, page by page, and it was quite a challenge. So we really looked for people who were very administratively sound and could do a lot of those administrative tasks. Go ahead.
If I was just going to comment, if only it was that easy now, right? I mean, now it's the world is completely changed. If someone wants to get into this field or wants to become part of this field or even grow, they have to do a lot more than just the stuff that you described. But I know a lot of people wish it was much simpler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we to just kind of take for instance, a lot of the industry came from the brokerage world. That's a starting point. It was actually a very good career path for a lot of people, and it started off with those administrative tasks and being able to do that quickly. So having a good functional knowledge of trade compliance was important then, as it is important now. But a lot of the focus on even the compliance aspect is, how do you get clearance? How do you do a 3461? How do you do a 7501? They're very entry process specific. And then there's a focus on being a licensed customs broker could get you further in your career. So trying to advance at that and trying to learn was important then, as it is now. But there's a lot of the concentration on compliance was on the entry process, importing material into the United States and how to fill out the forms and doing the administrative piece. We didn't have a lot of focus on export controls. We didn't see a lot of focus on sanctions, so different sanctions like we're seeing now with forced labor and different things like that. There's no such thing. Embargoes, trade sanctions, restricted party screen lists. We didn't necessarily look at that. In minor detail we did, but there wasn't as big of a concentration on that. We also didn't really use metrics the same way that we use them today. Generally speaking, when you would look at metrics, you're really just counting your workload. Was how we did. So bean counting. We would say we do this many processes, it's this. We spent this much money, here's the results. There wasn't a more of a forecast look at how we're going to use the data. It was really look in the rearview mirror. How much did I accomplish this month? And then there's a little bit of analytical work that you could do with it, but nothing to the point that we have today.
And if I remember correctly, that's kind of back when you started after, I guess, 9/11. That's when they also started the CTPAT program as well, right? Or is that when they started to focus more on it?
Yeah, CTPAT was directly a direct stem from 9/11, and it came shortly thereafter. The Safe Port Act of 2006, I believe, is when CTPAT really got launched into law. So you saw a lot of changes with the program as it went from kind of an immediate, like, we need to do something. We need to do something to protect ourselves. In 2001, towards the end of 2001, there was a CTPAT program put in place, and then you saw it kind of solidify in the Safe Port Act of 2006. So that's when you saw additional investments into security infrastructure. You started seeing import security filing requirements that ended up launching closer to 2009, 2010. But that's when the talks all started. That's when a pilot program began, and then started solidifying for the CTPAT as we know it today, which generally really started taking place around 2006-ish, or around then.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I feel like today, the reason for all those changes that happened from when you started to now, a lot of it also has to do with technology. We've come a long way in technology, in the data we can retrieve, in the data that's visible to us. And I feel like that really has helped trade compliance evolve from where it was before to
Hmm.
where it is now. How do you see, or what do you think, which direction would it go into the future? Would we how we pretty much like you said previously when you started, we were looking more at, if you were talking about metrics, you were looking at what you had accomplished. Now it's more forecasting. In the future, how do you feel technology would play a role in trade compliance, and in what way would it shape it?
Hmm. So I think that that's twofold. I think we can talk about we've spoken about the past, we can talk about the present, and then I think there's a different answer for the future. But the present it's clear, and we're living it, is that email, just like it's been, is important. Though email is definitely secondary to other types of communication mediums.
Mm,
So really, file transfer, EDI, XML, SFTP. That's how we're communicating these days. We have ERP systems that get interconnected through other systems, and there's a lot of data transfer. So we're living through that, and we've been living through that for quite a while. Although I'll touch upon it when we talk about future, but this is short term. There's bigger opportunities out there, and data is going to get much larger. But I do expect technology to increase. And if we feel like XML, FTP, EDI, all the buzzwords, if we think that's kind of a little hectic and chaotic right now, technology is going to play a bigger role in the near future. But on the same topic, or we're talking about of just the growth of the industry, you do have the technology piece, but you also have the way that we go about business. So we were very task driven in the past, and over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen that change quite a bit. We've seen administrative policies from the previous administration, and the current administration in the United States shares a lot of the same policies and thoughts that go towards trade. So we expect this to continue, and just behaviorally, way the globe goes about trade is going to really continue to be very similar to where we were. My light just keeps
mhm.
going in and out. So we'll touch about that a little bit more. But one of the things that we've just now realized is there were things that we had trade laws that were in place that we didn't necessarily know how they were going to change or how they were going to evolve. Um, we never really understood how we were going to get rid of NAFTA. There was a lot of discussion about changing NAFTA, but there wasn't a lot of understanding about can we really get out of NAFTA? We didn't really understand that. We definitely didn't understand how the UK could succeed from the European Union. It was things that we talked about, but we didn't really know how it happened. We didn't understand the 232 laws. We didn't understand the 301 laws. Some of these haven't been in effect or haven't been utilized in forever, and we didn't really know the legal basis about how we can retract them, or we could use those laws to help shape trade policy. So in the last 4 or 5 years, we've learned that, and we understand how that works. And you also see additional sanctions. You see the current administration in the United States focusing in a similar fashion to the previous on how to go about that and manage it. So I think a lot of this is here to stay.
Mhm.
The other piece of it is I spoke about metrics, and metrics are obviously very key, but they're even more key. So we not only utilize metrics to say what we've done, or have a little bit of cyclical analysis to see how volumes may change and fluctuate out over time. We're really using metrics right now to be more predictive of future, and that is how we go and we try to shape our organizations to fit that. Um, we're now utilizing these metrics for landed cost analysis, and we're utilizing it really to shape sourcing decisions, make buy decisions, and different things like that. So it's very powerful, and the role of trade compliance is becoming more integral into the business aspects of the organization.
Mhm.
The one thing, like I said before, with technology is you're not seeing the paper anymore, and that's very helpful, especially in being in such a remote workspace. So we're seeing a lot of the cloud-based activities. We're able to access data through the cloud as opposed to direct servers, which makes sharing of data quite a bit easier. and centralized housing of data. It also just very simply allows you to utilize a laptop all over the world and be able to conduct business the same way you would if you were in office. So that's great. And then, like I said in the very beginning, is we were just starting off in early 2000s or early aughts about security and really that focus on export controls, but it's here to stay and it's growing. Customs has invested quite a bit in new minimum security requirements and done a lot of rollout to try to make sure that the requirements of supply chain security are staying active and are staying relevant. So we see that as being here to stay, and it's now an integral part of trade compliance. So it's no longer just something that we do for we want to help with national security. It's part of our job. It's part of our trade compliance culture, and so that is for sure here to stay.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. And like you said, everything is getting more and more complex every single day. The policies, the data is getting bigger and bigger every single day. And kind of related to that is, I guess, because everything, the trade policy, the data, and everything that's getting a lot bigger, it's sometimes it's harder for bigger organization to manage that. For that, they need bigger teams. So I guess related to that would be the people that want to enter this field right now. Do you think this is the best time for them to get into this path, or should they wait a bit until everything kind of settles down or cools down, which I don't think is going to happen anyway? So, what direction do you think people should take if they want to enter this field, or whether they're deciding whether they want to continue in this field or they want to move away from it?
So I think what we need to do is just predict the direction that the industry is going, and that is that continued progression of what we were seeing before. So, told you, early aughts, we were using fax machines. We were learning how to use scan machines. We're learning how to use shared drive, just the very basics, but we're still very paper dependent. Currently, we're not paper dependent. We're files, file transfer, EDI, different sorts of data transfer. The future is continuing along that path. It is what's going the path that we're on, and we move away from what we're calling EDI and FTP and different things like that. And the new term is big data. And when we talk about big data, there's discussion about how to utilize blockchain in the most sophisticated way to support the business moving forward. And this isn't just the trade compliance realm. This is enterprise. This is big picture, big data, and that is the direction that we're going. Is how do we utilize the code and the way that we utilize blockchain for the future? And that clearly is the direction that we're going as far as data management. So that means the birth of the culture of the administrative type in information, read documents and type them into forms. That's going away. I mean, we know it, and that's been a goal of not only this industry but a lot of industries. So that question is when you start looking into big data, and that means that not only are the hard copy papers gone, that means the PDF files are gone. That means that these attachments and emails and things like that, that's gone. So the question is what replaces them, and that's what we need to figure. It also questions is what's the role of a customs broker? I'm very adamant that the customs broker is not going away. The customs broker is too valuable of a piece within the industry to go away. But the traditional sense in which we looked at customs brokers 20 years ago, that's not the case, and that job's going to evolve. And customs broker, I'm not anticipating a customs broker in the next 10 to 15 years is going to be somebody who's administratively driven. It's probably going to be more strategically driven. So the question is how do we get individuals and build them up with career paths to get to the point where that customs broker can still be as important and critical to business as it is? Because I, for one, I hear the questions, what's the role of the customs broker? If we have big data, like we say we're going to have big data, that means our ERPs are going to connect to some sort of blockchain, and clearances are going to happen really in a blockchain fashion, as opposed to what we traditionally call release and entry summary and things like that. We expect that to change, but we expect, and I for one really expect, that strategic nature of the customs broker is here to stay, and that administrative piece is going to change heavily. Some other things that, oh, go ahead, Nadeem. I apologize.
I was just gonna say, so as technology gets more advanced and you talk about big data, I feel like, at least from a custom brokerage point of view, it's going to be more about catching the errors, since I feel like everything is eventually going to become automated, like you said, clearances, they will become automated through blockchain technology, through one type of ERP data connecting to another type of data, and people eventually, custom brokerages, they will just kind of be there to confirm that everything does happen accurately rather than actually do the clearances, for example, themselves.
Yeah, it's going to evolve in some way. The critical way that we depend on customs broker, I for sure do not feel that it's going away, but I feel it's going to evolve heavily over the next 10 to 15 years. Other things, kind of as predecessors between now and when we really get to that blockchain perspective, is the optical character recognition. So we're already seeing the use of optical character recognition to pick data off of PDF documents and type them into systems and being able to pull from that. So we're seeing that today. These are kind of the steps that get us to kind of bridge us into some of the longer term plans. So you're seeing that. You're also seeing artificial intelligence, and we see it in certain areas. Certain customs brokers are going through their R&D departments right now, and they're trying to develop artificial intelligence, or they're actually functionally utilizing artificial intelligence to aid in the entry clearance process. And you're also seeing artificial intelligence used to analyze bills of materials and products for classification and qualification purposes as well. So you're seeing quite a bit of that. So it is going to change, but what does that move into? We don't know. We do expect, as far as industry-wide, more of what we're seeing before is going after those unfair trade practices. So maybe that's an element of a customs broker or some sort of a customs association. We think the things that related to current problems are going to continue in the future. Countries that are manipulating currency, countries that are dumping, illegally dumping, different things like that. We see that staying. A lot still with intellectual property safeguards, where intellectual property is being stolen. We see a need and a niche for that, and I think that will stay. And also, the other piece that supplements or potentially replaces this is what we do related to cybersecurity. So everything that goes digital then has the aspect of being at risk for cyber crimes. So we do know that that's an inevitable piece of our future pie, and it's an issue right now. It's going to grow. So that is something that is going to change and evolve over time, and something that we really need to focus on.
Both cybercrime and I feel like the compliance risk, it's going to get greater than it is, because as we use more, for example, as we use more AI, for example, or more automated processes like classification and stuff like that, there's this increased risk and compliance that comes with it, right? I mean, even right now, even right now in the modern age, we have a lot of, I guess, technology out there which kind of, for example, does classification on its own. But with that, I feel like it comes a lot of risk. For example, if that technology, it's still dependent on the people who make it, or on the algorithm which it uses to run the data, and I feel like with that, it's a lot of risk, and that's where the compliance people would still come in, whether it's now or the future. We would still have the need, whether you call them customs broker, whether you call them consultants, we would still have the need for those people to kind of make sure that we're avoiding that compliance risk, whether it's classification, whether it's valuation, whether it's other processes or procedures.
Yeah, exactly what I'm thinking.
Yep. So what do you think people or professionals need now to prepare for the future? As you stated, compliance has changed greatly from when you started to now, and then it's going to change greatly in the future. So, what type of path can an individual take to, I guess, get ready for the modern age or even the future? Which
Hmm.
direction should they go in? Because, I mean, like, even if we just talk about the traditional education, right? A lot of people believed in traditional education a couple of years ago, maybe 10, 20 years ago, but now we have a big generation which doesn't believe in that type of education.
Hmm.
But they still are willing to do a lot. They're still willing to learn. Plus, with all the resources which are available online, they can choose different paths to get into this field or any other field for that matter.
Hmm. Yeah, so I feel the trade compliance in the past it was very open for a diversified skill set, and I feel that that's still the case today. So I think this is a very welcoming industry for a traditional student coming out of college, wanting in trade compliance. I actually feel that for that category, it's more conducive for somebody coming out of college into the directly into the industry than it ever was before. And a lot of this is what I'm talking about with the big data, the analytics, the just visibility that trade compliance has within companies these days. So I think that was, is, and will continue to be a good route for that. But I also feel that the other channels, the direct out of high school or not out of uh, a university or college, I think it's still a great path into it. That's going to change it, but that's no problem. We're going to talk about some things today that are very conducive to helping grow and establish that career pathing. And what it's going to take is going to take what we call skills diversity. So we mentioned quite a few things. The analytical piece, so that's financial analytics, that's operational analytics, and different things like that. These are not things that necessarily need a college education to do. So there are, with the correct skill sets and the right focus, ways that you can go a non-college route and access it. The other thing that what we're seeing is seasoned professionals who start off in other industries, whether it's a completely unrelated industry or if it's a kind of a tangential industry, purchasing or logistics or something, start to come to trade compliance, where you never really used to see that in the past, where you would see kind of people that somehow randomly got into the industry and liked it and stayed. But you weren't seeing people that were already seasoned professionals that were in tax or in purchasing or in accounting or one of the other IT that got into it and said, you know what, this is great. So I think all three of those are well suited for the current state of trade compliance and well stated for the future state of trade compliance as well.
Hmm. Yeah, right. And what do you think of other certificates like the customs broker license or CCS? Do you think they're
Mhm.
just as essential as these are the type of education we spoke about, or does it not matter whether you have the certification as long as you get the education, for example, which could be webinars, which could be online
Mhm.
seminars or stuff like that?
Yeah, so from a hiring criteria, a lot of companies will utilize that just as a vetting process to be able to identify candidates. But knowing it, just like you and I, we went to college and we went to grad school and we did a lot of things. But the one thing that we didn't do a lot of learning of, whether it was in college or grad school, were some of the core components of trade compliance. So to say that it's an absolute need to do something where you didn't even learn it in college or in grad school, it's hard to say that is a requirement. I think you can self-teach. I think utilizing an organization like your consulting VTC to try to learn some of the aspects. I think those are ways that people can progress through the industry, and that comes for all three categories of individuals that I think, because I think everybody's a contributing factor or a contributing to the industry and has the opportunity. So you're just going to have to go a different route with this. But none of us are learning this information in college. Maybe just minute little pieces, but we're really learning this when we get out of college. And there are resources like your company, like different customs brokers or other organizations that can teach you, and then self-teaching, on-the-job training, it all helps and helps contribute. So I think there's an avenue for everybody.
And what do you think is the role of organizations to actually help people grow in such a manner? Or I guess what do they look for when they first hire someone versus where they want to be in the future?
I think that depends on the individual. I think the individual has to direct their careers, and the manager and the organization has to be able to shape their careers. One of the most important things is employee development, and in a lot of cases that entails succession planning. So having to make sure that you take an employee, you develop and you grow that employee as a responsibility. However, sometimes you'll have staffing models, and you will have people that are comfortable in their own role. And there's absolutely no problem with that either. So my recommendation is well, first off, if you're not developing your employees, if you're not trying to help them achieve their own personal goals, you are failing your employees. So that's first and foremost, is that you have an obligation to do that. And if you're not helping grow your employees, then that's a problem in itself. The other piece of that is really working with your employees, identifying goals, identifying objectives, and what their career plans are, and trying to work those in and fit them together to help grow and achieve those goals. So that's very, very important, and it is on the obligation of the manager to try to help do that, satisfy both the employees' needs as well as the company's needs.
Yeah, definitely. And but at the same time, I feel like the person who wants to grow, they need to be able to want that. If you have someone who is just okay with doing whatever they're doing or whatever they already know, then they'll keep doing the same thing and kind of stay where they are. But at the same time, if you have someone else who actually wants to grow, put in the work, then that's always beneficial. They can expand, like we spoke about before. They can expand on different type of skills, whether it's technical skills, whether it's other type of skills. So this is a combination of what the company and the manager can do, plus what you really want to do on your own as well.
Yep, correct.
Yep. So I know we kind of touched on this before as well, but what type of skills would a company actually want to see in their people in trade compliance? Do they focus more the technical side of things, or do they focus more on skills such as social skills and writing skills and stuff like that? Does it matter which is great in a person, or does it really depend on the organization, like you said?
Yeah, it depends on the organization. So the way that we teach it, and the way that I really conduct any type of business, is you really have to do a comprehensive analysis of your own business, and that is understand what your business is and where it needs to go. So there's that human capital piece of it that we'll touch upon, is you have to be able to fit skill sets to what your business needs, but you need to be able to identify what your business needs to be able to do that. So you have to say, what my organization, what do I do? What is my organization? What do I need to do? What are the processes I need to do? And pretty much define what your organization is. Then you look at your people and you identify, well, what are my people? Do my people fit what I need as a business today? And do they fit what I expect to need as a business in the future? And it's a game. It's a puzzle piece to say, okay, can I do that? In a lot of places, and really, the answer is probably going to be, in the short term, no. Like I said, as the business evolved, so as we stated, the past, present, the future of what we expect, how the business evolved. Most trade compliance departments that I've seen don't start off excellent. What happens is they kind of grow organically. We need this, we need this, we need this. They pull from resources and they try to do the best they can to manage, because we went through a very robust change over the last 15, 20 years. We've seen these change, and companies are just trying to catch up and manage that very organically. They'll take the resources they can, and they just do their absolute best with it. But what I generally see is coming into it is that the way you're doing it, the way you're going about things organically, eventually it's going to catch up to you, and you're not going to be the most efficient, most effective organization that you need to be. So at some point, you need to take a step back and say, okay, let me reassess my entire organization. And part of that they're going to reassess is going to be their personnel. And in that, they're going to evaluate the personnel and say, you know what I want to be as an organization, where I have gaps, where I need to close. Maybe my people are either misplaced, or maybe there are development things that they need to do, or maybe they're just not a fit for the organization in the future. But companies will take a look at that and evaluate that and try to build towards that. So the one thing you do, the first thing that you always do is say, of the personnel that I have, what can I do to develop them? What can I teach them? What kind of skills can I give to them? And then you kind of nurture an employee, and you work with that employee to be able to get there. And a lot of times when the employees have a perspective of what you're trying to achieve and what those goals are, they can raise the bar on themselves and achieve things that they never expected they personally could achieve. But as you've nurtured them and say, okay, we're going to take a step back. The organization is not moving the direction that I want. Here's where we're setting the bar. And then here's I'm going to develop my employees to get there. Sometimes you'll have attrition, or something will happen, or you may take on more work, and you do have to hire. And so that's where we get into the conversation about, do we hire for pedigree, or do we hire for potential? And that's going to vary based upon the need that you're trying to achieve. So when we talk about pedigree, that's really twofold. There's two sides to that coin. One of which is your skills pedigree, and that's really pretty much universal no matter what industry you're in. Your verbal skills, your written skills, project management skills, your data analytical skills, understanding of financial aspects and how that reports into business, different things like that. Some of them are soft skills, some of them are direct skills, but that would be your skills pedigree. Then your secondary pedigree would be your technical pedigree, and in trade compliance, that's really all the different aspects of trade compliance: qualification, classification, sanctions, embargoes, drawback, reconciliation, whatever the case that may be. Those are more technical pedigrees, and so if you have something in a short term that you want to achieve. So for instance, we've spoken about the example. I've just been notified that I have a focus assessment, and I know I do computer value reconciliation. I do computer value with my maquilas in Mexico, but I'm not doing value reconciliation. You know you have a problem. So if you're going to hire, you're not necessarily going to hire based upon potential. You're going to hire for a skills pedigree, and that skills pedigree is that they know valuation and they know financial understanding of the business, and they can fit those needs.
And I feel like that's great in an ideal organization. Everything described, the organization, they would kind of know exactly what they need and how much they need of it. But I feel like with trade compliance, a lot of time companies, at least from what I've seen, they want to focus more on the monetary value of hiring people. They just want to get the stuff done, and as long as things are going okay without anyone coming to them, it's okay. They don't want to invest the time or the money to just do stuff just because it's trade compliance, unless you can somehow show them there's some kind of monetary benefit to it. So I feel like a lot of companies kind of lack that perspective where they actually understand trade compliance fully, until there's a time when US Customs maybe comes after them for penalties. That's when they realize that how essential this actually is.
Yeah, no, completely understand. And this goes back to how I would describe as the worst kept secret in all of business. And that is, why are we in business? Are business here to hire people, to create teams? The answer is obviously no. Their business is not here to just create teams and hire people and try to get a pool of people for people to be on teams with. That's not the way that business works. Business really is here to work to drive competitive advantage, and they're trying to achieve profit and have that profit for their stakeholders, and they do that through competitive advantage. In trade compliance, competitive advantage in general, that's better, faster, cheaper. Can we do something better? Can we get material faster? Can we do something cheaper? So we talk about competitive advantage in those three realms. How that translates to trade compliance is pretty directly related. It translates through cost savings, the three C's: cost savings, compliance, and cycle time reduction. So in the same way, if you are an employee or you're somebody working, you should always be focusing, or you're a manager for that reason, you should really focus on ways that you can achieve one of those three C's for your organization. And you try to work that, and you try to drive it. There is an importance for all three of those in going through that bottom line and that savings. So it's very important to recognize where you fit within the organization and how you achieve benefits for your organization. And it's improving of one of those three. The compliance aspect, it's very challenging to quantify it. And I've had to do several business cases where I've tried to quantify the benefit of trade compliance. And sometimes it is challenging. The one thing that, whether it's good or whether it's bad, is that in the trade compliance realm, you don't see a lot of small penalties. You see headline penalties, and you see mitigated penalties that just are kind of nonsense. You're not seeing 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 that are kind of handed out like speeding tickets. You see a small liquidated damage penalty, or the other end of the spectrum is you see these monumental cases where there's some sort of financial fraud or some sort of national security risk, and you don't really see the in-between. But what happens on the in-between is really the biggest place for the business case, and that's the inefficiencies that you have within your organization. That is inefficiencies within the organization. That's material being held, uncertainty with where your freight is, an inability to really go through and drive initiatives, loss of opportunity cost, not being able to look at opportunity analysis on your free trade agreements, not being able to work and identify the landed costs or the network optimization activities that you really should be working with purchasing and supply chain to identify what your supply chain looks like. Those are the real risks to trade compliance, and they're not on the spectrum that you generally see, which are the far ends of it: the small liquidated damage ticket and the monumental national security issue. There's a lot of challenges, and there's a lot of costs that rely in the middle, and it's inefficient operations within your organization.
Yeah, definitely. And you as the profession, you have to be able to show how that inefficiency is going to cost a business, because at the end, that's what matters, right? Like you said, companies exist to make a profit, and you have to be able to show how they're losing their profit if they're not, for example, compliant, or if they're doing things the wrong way. And that's where you kind of step in, and it's your job to show how you will benefit your organization, and that's why you're there.
Exactly.
Yep, yep. So my last question to you, Jeff, would be: what is your advice to people who want to enter this field? How should they approach entering this field, and how should they go on about entering this field? For example, when if let's compare two kinds of people who are trying to enter this field who are not in it so far, and then there are people who are in it who want to grow. So people who are not in this field, what do you think, what steps is going to help them enter this field if they want to do it?
So it's a very diverse field, and so there's so many different things that you can do. So I really feel no matter how you stick your toe in the water, it all starts at the same place. So the main thing is it's a diverse industry. So that means you need diverse skill sets. So always focus on both what I described before, that technical pedigree and that skills pedigree. Focus on checking off everything where you have challenges, where you have growth opportunities. Put together your own personal development plan to try to achieve growth in those areas. As you diversify that skills pedigree, you are going to be more marketable for everyone, and that's only going to improve benefits to yourself. So focus on that. So get in some place and then work around that. Always practice your soft skills. So different things. There's different relationship building and different things like that. So don't forget the fact that soft skills are a very critical part of your growth and development and how people see and perceive you. As I've stated so many times, understand your metrics, understand your financials, understand your KPIs, how that goes about business. That is how business is derived. Also, as I stated before, with the human aspect and the soft skills piece of it, network. And a lot of times people say networking is job hopping or moving around from organization to organization, but that's not all what networking is. Networking is really going and developing your professional core circle of people who you trust. And this core circle of people that you trust is not necessarily who's going to give you your next job. I generally try to develop, well, I don't generally, I developed a network of people that I trust, and I really depend on those people, and I use them not for jobs, not for references, not for anything like that, but they help round out areas that I don't have the skills or the expertise in. So they are the ones that help bridge me and help me. The other thing is that you need to reciprocate, give back to your network. When you ask from your network, you give to your network. So when people need things, you try to help them out. When they're stuck on something, they need to understand something. Help out. Always give back to the community. So whatever it is, don't pass up an opportunity to work and grow and give back to the industry. It's very important. And then finally, when you get started and as you begin to grow within the industry, is that understand that this, no matter how big we get, we're still a niche industry and we're still very small. So when we talk about networks, the network it's finite. I mean, in reality, there's a finite number of people that are in the industry at a high professional level. So don't burn bridges, treat people with respect and proper, and that was only going to help you along the way. Never burn a bridge, never do anything that maybe feels good in the moment, but 5-10 years from now, it's going to be remembered, and that's going to carry with you quite a long time.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like especially with trade compliance, it's kind of like everyone knows everyone, right?
Yep.
It's a small group of people compared to other professionals that everyone they've either seen you, heard about you, or seen you somewhere. It's everyone knows everyone somehow, and if you keep on burning their bridges, then it's just gonna impact you negatively, probably in the long run anyway.
Correct. Yeah.
And also everything you spoke about, whether it's soft skills or technical skills, that's essential. Whether you're someone who's new to the field or someone who's already in the field and you want to just grow, you need to develop both of these skills, and you can do it in different ways. For example, we talk about webinars, seminars, then we also talk about LinkedIn. And for example, this forum you said, this channel that you come on, I have a lot of people reaching out to me, for example, when they have a question, and I have people reaching out, for example, from Mexico to India to Canada to US, and they just ask random questions, which I might have the answer to. So it's great to always reach out to other people to develop that connection and also to kind of fill in the gap of the knowledge that you don't have yourself.
Absolutely.
Yep, definitely. I agree with you. So thank you, Jeff. I just want to take a moment and thank you so much for joining me here today. It was great talking to you. Everything you said, from skills to the development of trade compliance in general to AI and blockchain, and the way that professionals should grow and the way organizations, the way they look at stuff. That's all of that is going to be very, very beneficial to everyone who's watching this. So I thank you so much for being on this show. I really appreciate it.
My appreciation. And Nadeem, again, very proud of everything that you've done. This is a great forum, and I hope everybody learns quite a bit from it.
Yep, definitely. And I hope it grows in the future even more. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.